Welcome to The State of Us. Real people with honest opinions and the future of responsible media. Here's your host, Justin T. Weller.
Welcome and thank you all for tuning in. Democrats see 5-alarm fire over health law. That's according to the New York Times Sunday, December 16th edition. So even though this happened last week, we're talking about it now because there's a few more things that have come into play. And we're interested. We want to talk about your health care, your coverage, and the predicament that both Democrats and Republicans are in. So we'll break that down and give you a little more insight into why that is. But of course, no program on health care, Democrats and Republicans, could be complete without our very honored senior historian.
Your friendly redneck liberal, Lance Jackson.
I'm here. At least now I know the topic, so we're good.
Okay.
All right.
Hey, you knew before we came in.
We're doing health care.
Health care.
Not them crazy Texans. Is that what we're doing?
No. It feels like forever, Lance, since we've actually been. I mean, I know everybody else doesn't feel that way because they're just listening, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, as they do. But you and I haven't actually recorded since last Wednesday. So I guess it hasn't been that long.
Through the mysteries of recording, right?
Yes.
But it wasn't just us.
No.
We had other people.
We did. 2 guests last Wednesday, so we had to break it up. Let us know your thoughts, by the way. If you haven't listened
don't
yet,
tell them all our secrets.
Go back and check out. Go back and check out our No Labels show. That one's up. So.
Okay.
But there's a good one coming this Wednesday.
All right.
You want to tell them which one that is, Lance?
I'm not telling secrets.
Okay.
You got to listen.
They just have to.
Look it up.
Tune in and hope.
That's right.
Okay.
You got to look it up.
All right.
It will be broadcast later. It will be broadcast in the future. It was not broadcast last week.
That was our fun fact of the day. Broadcast is the same, whether it's in present, past, or future. Or future, whatever. Anyway, that. So the decision by a federal judge in Texas to strike down all of the Affordable Care Act has thrust the volatile battle. Don't you like that? Over health care. It's a volatile debate. Excuse me. I misquoted the Times there. Volatile debate over health care onto center stage in a newly divided Capitol, imperiling the insurance coverage of millions of Americans while delivering a possible policy opening to Democrats. The ruling, if it stands, would not only do away with coverage protections for people with pre-existing health conditions, but would also strike down mandated coverage for what the law deems, quote, essential health benefits, end quote, including emergency services, maternity and newborn care, mental health and substance abuse treatment, prescription drugs, and pediatric care. So just a tad more background. The judge struck it down on the basis that the individual mandate inside of the law made it unconstitutional. In other words, the judge wrote in his decision that the law is not constitutional because the law cannot force Americans to buy something they don't want or cannot punish them for not buying something they don't want. So that was the basis of then, because the law, again, the argument goes, because the law is built around the idea that to make this program affordable, everybody has to have insurance, hence the penalty if you don't, that everything falls apart without it. So the judge was unwilling to allow the rest of the law to stand. Now, the last piece here to keep in mind, Lance, is that there's a decent chance that this will go to the Supreme Court and that the Supreme Court will overturn, if not the entire ruling, a significant portion of it because of how broad sweeping it is. And this is an interesting test of judiciary power in the notion that because one part of a law is faulty, the entire thing goes away. Whether we should piecemeal legislation, in other words, in the judiciary. So we're going to look at trying to examine those multiple components, the Democrat side of things, the Republican side of things, the ruling itself, the constitutionality of the individual mandate, and that'll probably be the whole show. So where do you want to start, Lance? What sounds good? I know you were interested in talking about.
So this is one judge, right?
The ruling itself.
This wasn't an appellate court,
right?
Or a district court.
That's right.
Or anything like that. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. So obviously this really doesn't mean a whole lot other than it gets the debate started.
Right. It fires up the debate.
Okay. I think that's where I want to start so people aren't running scared. that something's going to happen to them this afternoon if they have to go see the doctor or seek medical attention this afternoon. I don't know. I have a real hard time. I know why judges do this, to get the debate going. We know that there's a problem within the healthcare system. We know it needs to be fixed. Even President Obama said what Congress passed when he was president was not what he really wanted, but it was starting the process. This is something that we've talked about. President Harry Truman, after World War II, first broached this subject of a national health care plan. So it's something that's been on the books. We know what we have is not good. We know what we had before this, though, wasn't working as well and was probably, in the minds of most people, even a worse system than what we have. Now, there are people out there within the medical field, as well as individuals who had good health care, who said, well, the other system was better. Okay, but when we talk about being fair or equitable, when the number of Americans who could not seek health care was so great.
So the ruling, according to NPR, was by U.S. District Judge Reed O'Connor. And it's invalidating what's commonly referred to as Obamacare nationwide. The ruling comes in a lawsuit brought against what was one of the major domestic achievements of the Obama administration, an alliance of 19 Republican attorneys general and a governor led by Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton challenged the law. So it was a lawsuit that this judge was ruling on, District Judge Reed O'Connor. In his 55-page opinion, O'Connor said the debate over the ACA's interlocking provisions is, quote, like watching a slow game of Jenga, each party poking at a different provision to see if ACA fails, end quote. In a statement, White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders praised the ruling. Obamacare has been struck down by a highly respected judge. The judge's decision vindicates President Trump's position that Obamacare is unconstitutional. Once again, the president calls on Congress to replace Obamacare and act to protect people with pre-existing conditions and provide Americans with quality, affordable health care. We expect this ruling will be appealed to the Supreme Court. Pending the appeal process, the law remains in place. Shortly afterward, President Trump tweeted, quote, as I predicted all along, Obamacare has been struck down as an unconstitutional, in all capital letters, disaster. Now Congress must pass a strong, in all capital letters, law that provides great health care and protects pre-existing conditions.
Trump speak.
Yes.
It's not the truth. It's
so
not, again, he just puts his spin on it, and then everybody his supporters want to say, well, that's the truth.
Right.
And people who don't like him say, no, he's lying again. But the point, I don't know. I just call it Trump speak because you really can't glean anything from that because nothing's been decided.
Right. Well, and to be fair to the judge.
And you know what they did? They handpicked that district because they knew that's where they'd get the decision they wanted.
Right.
I mean, both sides do that. I'm not saying the attorney generals who did this did it maliciously. You do that to get you. Why did it take place in this person's courtroom, this district? Because they knew they would get the decision they wanted. And because you can handpick the district courts across the United States, you can look at what they're going to decide in most cases, and you get to handpick it so you get the decision you want to force it to go to the Supreme Court. We're just playing politics with people's health care.
Right. But like I was saying, in fairness to the judge, though, too, we don't want to take his points out of context. I mean, he wrote a 55-page opinion. So in all fairness, trying to sum it up in, one paragraph probably isn't very reasonable because there was probably a lot of different explanations to break it down. But he even points out that he was not saying that everything in the law was unconstitutional. He ruled that the mandate for individual coverage was unconstitutional, which again, for those of you that don't know, the way the law is written is that if you choose not to get yourself covered, then you will be punished through tax penalties.
You're not punished. You pay higher taxes. It's not a punishment. You're paying higher taxes. You have a choice. You're not being made to do it. You can do it, or you pay more in taxes. You have a choice. The government mandates all kinds of things. The government mandates that you go and get an education. You have to be in school, whether it's online, in a seat, whether it's a charter school, a public school, a private school. You have to attend school of some kind until a certain age. The government mandates that you have to have a license to drive a vehicle. The government mandates you have to have different levels of a license depending on what type of vehicle you want to drive or fly. So where are we just going to start picking and choosing what the government can and cannot mandate? The government mandates how fast you can drive on its roads. The government mandates that you have to stop at an octagonal red sign with the letters STOP on it. Your vehicle must come to, a complete halt. That's a government mandate. So, how many government mandates are we going to take out?
Well,
why can't there be a government mandate on this? And again, it's still giving you an option. You don't have to find insurance, but right. You're going to pay more in taxes.
Well, by that same logic and fairness.
Wait a minute, I've always told you, I don't give a rip. You don't want to buy health care? That's fine. And if you go to the doctor and you go to the hospital, you go to the emergency room, you're in a car accident and they check and you don't have health insurance and they check your bank account and you don't have the money to pay for it, then you die right there. Fine. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Let's get to the crux of the problem. These people that are whining and griping and complaining about, well, I have to do this. Government doesn't have the right to tell me. Good. Then let your ass die, in the emergency room. We're not going to birth your baby because you chose to save the how many hundreds of dollars a month that it's going to cost you for health care. Fine. You have that option. Then we should have the option of not having to take care of you, of not having to treat you.
So now
wait a minute. Everybody's going to say I'm hard-hearted. Oh my gosh. Well, what do you want? What do you want? You can't have your cake and eat it too, right?
Well, right now you can. Because you show up, Lance calls his insurance after the studio, right? You call your insurance and cancel it. And then on the way home, you get in an accident and show up at the emergency room. And the law says that they have to provide you care. They have to save your life or get you to a stabilized point. And then they don't have to do anything else, but they have to take care of you to the point of getting you
and
stabilized.
So if that's the law, then what's wrong with mandating? That's my whole point. And you know that. Okay?
Yeah.
If there's a law out there that says they have to take care of you, then I don't see where it's unconstitutional to mandate that you get health care. Because otherwise, who's paying to take care of all these people who opt out of health care? We are.
Right. The people who do have insurance.
We're absorbing that cost into our health care. So I have no problem with people not getting the health care. Then they don't get any care.
Yeah. And for what it's worth, my mentality, so the listeners know, is basically the same thing on that. I think, for what it's worth, I think there's a constitutionality argument of forcing and we've talked about this too, on like the businesses being required to serve African Americans, for example. On requiring a private business to extend funds on something that it does not willingly want to extend funds on. Like, for example, Mercy Hospital here in Urbana, they don't take care of people who come into the emergency room who don't have insurance out of the good of their hearts. They're doing it because the law says they have to. And they might not be allowed to stick around as a hospital if they don't follow that law. So it's not, oh, well, they're nice people and they're doing this, out of the goodness of their hearts. They're doing it because they're told they're not allowed to not do it. So I think there's that all by itself. I think there's a argument to be made that may not be constitutional to force a hospital to take care of somebody who's dying just because.
But it is.
Just because.
And as long as that's the law.
It is right now.
Then I don't think that it's.
Then you don't think this is out of the realm of acceptability as long as something like that's the law. Is that fair?
Right. You can't mandate. It's okay to mandate that people buy health insurance if the law says we have to take care of them.
Right. Now, if the law doesn't say that,
then I would think that mandating them to get health care would be unconstitutional.
Right.
So, but in our current system, I don't think that, to me, the constitutionality does not hold water, because you're going to get services because of the law. So
Yes.
if you're going, if private doctors and hospitals have to give services, then people should have to get insurance.
Because I think there's a lot of misinformation too about the individual mandate.
Or pay the fine.
Right, or pay the fine.
And if you pay the fine, then you can still get your treatment, even though you don't have insurance.
Right.
I'd even go that far.
Mm-hmm.
If you choose not to have the insurance, I don't know. I'm thinking about that one as I'm talking.
I know you're chewing on it. It's like,
But at least then you had an argument.
Yeah.
I paid my fine, and so therefore I still get treatment. Then, I mean, that at least
Right.
it is sensible to me.
Because the fine is designed to offset that.
The cost of what the insurance is.
The cost of you not having insurance.
And you're still going to probably, in a traumatic experience, spend more than what the fine cost you.
Right.
So you're still making out okay, but you're being punished as far as you're charged the same amount as you would be trying to pick up health care. So I could see that argument makes sense. Doesn't make sense to say it's unconstitutional to mandate it when we have a law that mandates
the hospitals take care of
people,
Yep.
in my opinion.
Yep. No, I think I agree with it on that basis of logic, because the law right now allows us to force private entities, which hospitals for the most part are, to spend money that they probably don't want to spend to take care of people, to serve customers they don't want to serve necessarily. Then it's not wrong to in turn say we're going to force we're not forcing, they do have a choice, but we're going to penalize people who choose not to have coverage. Now, just to be clear, according to healthcare.gov, for plans with years through 2018, if you can afford health insurance, but you choose not to buy it, you may pay a fee. So healthcare.gov calls it a fee, which is called the individual shared responsibility payment. So it's not actually called the individual mandate. And then it goes on to say the fee is commonly called the penalty, fine, or individual mandate. You pay the fee when you file your federal taxes. According to MedMutual, they explain the penalty is also called a fee, fine, or individual responsibility payment. If you don't have coverage in 2018, you must pay 2.5% of your yearly household income, or $695 per person, or $347.50 per child under 18, whichever is more. So in other words, if your 2.5% would be less than $695, then you got to pay the $695. If it's more than that, then you have to pay whatever the 2.5% is. So it is, it can be a pretty substantial chunk of change depending on, the kind of money you make, and 2.5% of your income is not nothing. So it's definitely.
But many of us who work someplace who has health insurance as part of the benefit package are taking easily that much less in salary.
Yeah.
To carry health insurance. People don't understand that. If I understand working in a place of business, that when they include health insurance, that's part of my earnings. Mm-hmm. Because that takes money for them to pay that premium.
Yeah, a lot of people don't get that, I don't think.
Right. They don't understand that.
Right. They don't understand that it's not your business is being super nice and offering you this. It's no, they're actually taking part of what you earn and using collective bargaining basically to get a better deal for all of its employees.
And even if you're paying for that insurance, generally you're getting it cheaper because you have a group of individuals who are purchasing it. So your buying power with the insurance company is better than you are as an individual. So 2.5% is not an uncommon number. Now, all of this being said, you and I don't agree with the current healthcare situation.
Right.
We both think there are better ways to do it. Now, I don't agree. Neither one of us, I don't think, agree with the current president's solutions for it. But we have in the past brought forth our own solution that would be much cheaper for a universal coverage, and it would be cheaper, and people would get better coverage than they are now.
Yes.
It's just that the politicians can't. I mean, we use their numbers.
Yeah.
We use government numbers and came up with a system that is both cheaper and better than the current system we have in place.
Yep.
And the system that was in place before this system was put in place, and is better even than the system that President Trump is putting in place.
So we're going to keep.
So now is the time to push the button to plug in our plan from our podcast 3 years ago.
Yep.
I'm just saying this to the audience. You can go back and listen. I'm not going to use this show to go in depth as to what we did, but we came up with something that is much better, covers everybody, and is cheaper than anything that was there before or is being tossed out there now by either party.
So I'll briefly review that here in just a second. But before we do, the reason Lance and I are talking about this and trying to hopefully give you a better understanding of the quote unquote individual mandate and its relevance and importance and what this ruling means is because there is a lot of, I think, confusion out there right now about what this ruling in Texas means. And that speaks to a little bit about what TrueChat's trying to do. TrueChat's mission is to educate people by providing honest, open, and respectful conversations. And of course, if you don't think we're doing that, email ethics@truechat.org. Let us know your thoughts, though, on today's show. If you have other questions you'd like us to answer, at TrueChat.org on social media. So the very basics of it was basically, and everybody hang in there with me, was everybody is allowed to have access to Medicare if they want it. Okay? So nobody's forced to have Medicare. If you want Medicare, you can have it. And we're not getting rid of all private insurance. Again, you're welcome to buy private insurance if that's what you want. And if you choose Medicare, then your taxes increase proportional to the amount the Medicare costs for your plan, whatever that might be. So the thinking here was this also forces competition in the healthcare space to offer better, more affordable plans. And the hope is that people go away from Medicare because the private industries, as historically has proven the case, when the government tries to do something, private industry usually figures out a way to do it better, cheaper. And that's the hope here, is that they'll be able to offer something even better.
Right. We're trying to create competition.
Yeah, exactly.
By offering the government's program instead of getting rid of competition.
Right.
Because we believe in competition. We think competition
is good.
Right. And it gives people a better product at a cheaper price.
Yes.
When there is competition.
Which is why we both have shared before that we don't think the ACA is the answer. It's a way to begin. It was a way. I mean, because it's mostly, and here's the other thing with this whole ruling. I mean, everybody's up in arms about it, but the reality is that this judge's particular ruling isn't that big of a deal because here in a few days, Lance, the individual mandate's gone anyway because the Republicans moved that, which I said was a problem, and I think you did too. Again, not because we love ACA, but because the basis of ACA, as the judge noted, is around the mandate. So you get rid of this and prices in markets which are already going up are going to skyrocket because the health companies and the marketplace are depending on people having insurance who didn't have it before. So if all those people get rid of their insurance, the whole thing falls apart because that was the whole premise. So it's bad.
But the part of the ACA and even this judge's decision, I think, or you could argue anyway, and I think it's true, is to get the politicians off of dead center and come up with something better. And until you force their hands, they're not going to make a decision.
Yeah, I mean, something has to be done, obviously. That's, I think, at this point, the Republicans and getting rid of the individual mandate, no matter what they say, is getting rid of that is going to fundamentally start to completely destabilize Obamacare because that's, again, a big part of what it's built around. So that leads kind of into the next point, Lance, Democrats, Republicans, what the predicament each of them is in. And I think on a very simple level, and you can expand on this if you want, for Democrats, right, this is their law. And they have a big problem that they have to do something about, because without the individual mandate, as we've explained, things are going to get even worse. And there's already problems that need to be addressed. So they have a problem from that standpoint, and they can't just do nothing, because it'll just get worse, and that won't help them in 2020. You know, if the law falls apart and the prices skyrocket and it's terrible, that's bad. And on the Republican side, there was a lot of Republicans, and even the White House just there said that they're in favor of protecting people with, oh, there it is. It all came back to me.
Pre-existing
conditions. That is a mandate. You're forcing healthcare companies to cover people that they may not want to cover, which is the same thing as forcing the hospital to take care of people they don't want to take care of, which is the same thing as forcing people who don't want insurance to get insurance. There's your third thing to build off of.
Because that's how insurance works.
Right.
The companies make their profit off of people that don't have issues.
Yeah.
Well, or whether it's homeowners insurance or it's car insurance.
It's the idea that the whole
business plan works on the more people you can cover, the more likely you are to turn a profit, because you're charging the people that will never use it versus those people that have to have it.
Yeah. Because most people, most of the time, don't need it.
Right.
It's there for
It's what insurance is all about.
Exactly.
It's there to use in an emergency. You don't ever want to have to use it. You know, I mean, if I had my druthers, I would never, I don't have it right now, but I would never wanted to have used my life insurance.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to use my life insurance policy because that means I was dead. Right?
Yeah.
So when I was working, it was, part of my package. So I carried it. I don't carry it now. Now I don't carry it because I've got other funds to take care of that. But you buy a life insurance or, I don't want to use my health insurance. I want to be healthy. I don't want to have to go to the doctor. I don't want to have to get medicine, but you have it to cover yourself. It's that risk reward.
Yep.
And the way they make money is the insurance companies is to cover people that are healthy.
Well, we know it doesn't work, right? I mean, we've seen this with the wildfires recently, that story that came up about the company in Canada.
Yeah, we just have to buy everybody a rake. If everybody just bought a rake, the president, there'd be no more wildfires.
That'd fix it, huh? Insurance companies, that's a prerequisite to covering people. Do you own a rake? And do you use the rake? Because, owning it doesn't.
You have to send in pictures of yourself or videos of yourself using the rake. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. But it's that idea that if everybody all at once, was in a hospital, those companies would go bankrupt because they're not built on that idea of we can take care of everybody who has a policy. We're not taking in enough money to take care of everybody.
Right. If everybody files a claim.
Because that's not the basis of it. It's all built on the assumption that most people, most of the time, don't need this thing, or may never. I mean, there's people who go through their whole life and don't ever need their auto insurance.
And that's why it's affordable.
Right. Auto insurance, there's another mandate.
For all of us. Right.
If you're going to drive, you're required by law to have it. So I was trying to think of examples where the government forces you to spend money or penalizes you, costs you money. Because there's lots of mandates where they require you to do something, but there's really not a monetary disadvantage to not doing it.
Right.
So, I mean, like you could say, well, yeah, if I speed, there's a monetary disadvantage. Well, but most of the time there's not, because most people don't get caught speeding.
I bought a house in a 100-year-old floodplain map. So I had to pay flood insurance until I paid down, which only pays if it floats down Kings Creek, If my house is taken down and floats down Kings Creek, which isn't even wide enough
for
my house to fit, then I get paid. But I had to pay government flood insurance because the map said that I lived in a floodplain.
Could happen
in the last 100 years. Yes.
It might happen. Yeah. So
mandated. I mean, I couldn't get a bank loan.
Right.
I mean, it was mandated.
If you want this house and you want this loan,
and I want the loan. Right. Now, if I had cash to pay for it, I guess I could have, gone around it. Right. Yeah. Tons of mandates, people out there. So using it that it's mandated as being unconstitutional has it's really hard for this redneck liberal to wrap his head around that, to say that this is a bad law because of that
right.
mandate.
Yeah. And we're willing, like we highlighted before, we're all for taking on the idea of mandates and their constitutionality, but that opens the book to a whole host of things.
Right.
So you can't, it's not, in our minds, it's not as simple as saying, well, this mandate, but then there's all these other mandates. And for those Republicans out there who are, pro-business, allegedly, then I would think they ought to be all over that, because pro-business businesses get forced to do stuff all the time that they don't want to do, that cost them lots of money. So where are you complaining about those mandates? We don't hear much about that. So anyway, let us know your thoughts today on all of this. Hopefully we wrapped it up and gave a little more insight into it. Probably doesn't mean much anyway, because here very shortly, the individual mandate's going away. Whether or not any of us like it, it's the law. So we'll see what they come up with, Lance, huh? We got a good idea.
Well, the good point here is, and I'm going to throw this out because it happened last week on our show. It appears that the new Congress coming in January is going to change some rules to be able to bring more bipartisan legislative ideas to the floor. So I'm just hoping that
makes a difference.
Within the next month, we'll start to see some bipartisan legislation on these issues come for a vote, and not let the extremes of both party rule the law of the land.
Yeah, it'll definitely be the test of time, as a lot of these things are.
That's my optimism.
Right. But I agree. I think if there's anything, the biggest thing that has the opportunity to make the difference here is those rule changes that Lance and I had the privilege of speaking with No Labels last week about. So be sure to check out that episode if you haven't already. Tweet at TrueChatORG. Let us know your thoughts. And where can people find TrueChat Podcast, Lance?
Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, and where other fine podcasts are aired.
For The State of Us on TrueChat, I'm Justin T. Weller.
And I'm Lance Jackson.
Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Be the change.